An FDA panel recommends the COVID vaccine for children ages 5 to 11. We'll talk with the chairman of the vaccine committee. And whether it's vaccines or masks, this far into the pandemic, how do you feel about mandates? What about mandates against mandates? Today is Sunday, October 31st, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. In fact, it's the Halloween edition of Flashpoint. Happy Halloween. Hope you're having a great last weekend of October, which means we've got an election day 2 days hence. I wonder if, like me, you're sensing political fatigue among voters. A mayor's race that had no face-to-face meetings between the candidates, city council races that are coming in the midst of an ongoing corruption investigation, and 3 proposals that haven't exactly lit up the political seismographs. And, of course, it's another election held during a pandemic. And speaking of that, as parents have struggled for answers in protecting young children from the virus, the FDA's vaccine committee this week recommended vaccines for children 5 to 11. Judging from the emails on Click on Detroit, that vote inspired just as many questions as answers. And coming up, we'll again be joined by the man who heads up the vaccine committee for the Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Arnold Monto. But from vaccines to boosters to just wearing masks, as a society, we continue to debate the idea of mandates, a very thick line between recommending something and demanding it. We've even seen a Warren City councilman arrested for refusing to wear a mask inside the TCF Center recently. The issue's been particularly volatile in schools as school board meetings have fallen into free-for-alls. Well, what about a mandate against mandates? This week, Republicans in the state Senate passed several bills that would outlaw mandates for both masks and vaccines. Now, Governor Whitmer is certain to veto that, but it won't end the argument. We'll tackle that today, too, on Flashpoint. All right, let's start this morning with the man who on this program has been our guide through much of the pandemic, especially when it comes to vaccines. He's the chairman of the FDA's vaccine committee, the epidemiologist from the University of Michigan, Dr. Arnold Monto. Dr. Monto, you had quite a week, and I'd like to go back to that hearing on Tuesday. And correct me if I'm wrong, to many of us that were watching it, the mood, the vibe of that meeting felt a little different. There was a different kind of intensity. Is that because we were talking about kids, or am I maybe oversubscribing drama where you didn't necessarily feel any?
No, I think we're all more sensitive when we're talking about kids, and these are healthy kids that we're mainly talking about. And we know that healthy kids have wound up in the hospital with COVID at a lower frequency from adults, but in fact, it has happened. We've had deaths of kids from COVID, and we've also had, and there were some members who talked about this, deaths of kids from influenza. Not a whole lot, but we vaccinate kids for influenza, and that's why we felt, all of us, that it was incumbent on us to provide a vaccine for those parents and their kids who want to get protected at this point, because one of the things that was very clear is that the vaccines are highly effective.
It does feel like, I think, like a different task here for a lot of parents. It's one thing for me to get a vaccine and sort of put my own life on the line if I'm making a decision for my child, which is still developing, still maturing, especially when we're talking about prepubescent children. I mean, there's a lot of different wrinkles in this when we start talking about kids. Are you convinced that we know enough? Oh, obviously, you feel that we are, but how do you convince others, perhaps, that we know enough to move forward with this?
Well, I think we do know enough. We've seen that this vaccine, the benefits clearly outweigh the risks. The risks are really very small for adults, especially adults over about 30 to 40 years of age. The one thing that we have seen, which is clearly associated with the vaccine, is in typically mainly adolescent males, an occurrence of myocarditis. It's very low frequency, but it is related to the vaccine. And that's why, among other reasons, the amount of stuff, antigen, that's in the vaccine is reduced by a third. We've got only about a third of the mRNA in the vaccine. In kids, this works. It produces good responses. And the sponsor was able to provide us with data which showed us more than 90% effective in preventing symptomatic COVID. Not hospitalizations, and from the other data, we'd expect that it would be even higher.
Right. But when you hear a parent say, look, we know that there are some of these cases of myocarditis and we don't know why they're happening, it's irresponsible to move ahead until we have that figured out. What would you say?
I think we need to continue because we've looked at this. We had a very detailed analysis of risks, benefits, putting into the equation in terms of the risk of myocarditis. And that convinced us that we should be moving ahead. We do know that people do have questions, and that's why the committee in general felt that we're not yet ready, if at all, ever, for mandates for children. But many parents want to get their children protected. They know that they are at risk, and they know that attendance at school is very important, and we've seen school outbreaks.
Yep. Yep. Especially, it's hard to miss the fact that a lot of them are in places where there hasn't been any sort of masking protocols as well. I'm curious about letting you clear up something that we talked about on one of our newscasts this past week. Parents of 11-year-olds feel like they're in this sort of strange intersection right between our vaccine protocols. And we've had some questions come into the newsroom. Our Dr. Frank McGeorge tackled this week. I want to let you handle the same question. Why are we talking about age instead of weight, as we do with a lot of medications?
Well, because this is not a medication. This is a vaccine, and the question, they're typically, for example, with influenza vaccine, there used to be a smaller amount of vaccine given to very young children under 5 years, or it varied in different countries. And we've gone in general to a single dose. The reason we are reducing the dose here is that we know that there is good response to a third of the dose. And there was another question, well, why an 11-year-old are you giving a third of the dose and a 12-year-old the full dose? And my answer to that is we need to see whether we can give a third of the dose to the older children, because it probably would work. We really haven't evaluated going down as far as we can with the dose, because we've only had a year to work with this, and the hope is to stop outbreaks.
I think part of what you're suggesting there, that we're still learning a lot, is what is also the FDA, your marching orders are to figure out whether this vaccine is safe. It's not really to weigh in on mandates. That's left to others, but that doesn't mean you don't discuss them. And you all discussed mandates the other day, and you're not really comfortable with the idea of this vaccine being mandated for children yet, right?
That's right, because we really need more information about these total effects. We don't know. We think that we're going to be able to reduce transmission to other family members or teachers and the rest. We'd like to see observations to prove this. We can extrapolate from what we've seen with other respiratory infections, but this virus is different in many ways. So we go with the best information we have at the time, and then fine-tune as we go along. But we feel comfortable, and a lot of my medical colleagues are eager to get their children vaccinated. There are some that don't want to, so we need to not be telling people what to do now, but advising.
We've got obviously still a lot more to learn, not only about the vaccine, but still about COVID this much time after it first arrived. Dr. Monto, it is always good to have you on the program. You're a terrific guide through the decision making that you've been doing at the FDA. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
My pleasure.
You bet.
Bye.
Dr. Arnold Monto, epidemiologist from the University of Michigan.